Okay. So I've.
Can I just,
Yeah.
Marilyn?
Yeah.
Marilyn?
Yes, Bernard.
Can you hear me? Yeah,
I
okay,
can.
that's fine.
Yeah. So I'll begin. Okay. If you're all sitting comfortably, I will begin. So welcome everybody to this Medway Green Party presentation, Planning for the Future. We have great expectations for a sustainable future on the Hoo Peninsula and across Medway. This is actually just episode 1 because we are planning future presentations further down the line. I'm going to be commenting and also reading out each of the slides, and that's because we want to make them accessible to everybody. Bernard will also be describing and explaining pictures, graphs and maps. As we go through, if you have any questions or thoughts, please do note them down, because at the end we are hoping for some discussion. Okay, next slide. So we're going to begin by exploring what is possibly a great opportunity. On the 6th of August this year, a 12-week consultation started on a government white paper called Planning for the Future. The government has said they want to streamline and simplify the planning process by pre-identifying land under 3 distinct categories. And those categories are: the growth category is for the areas suitable for sustainable development and where outline approval for development would be automatically secured for forms and types of development specified in local plans. The renewal category is suitable for some development, such as gentle densification, filling in the gaps. Maybe that's a more benign sounding term than it actually is in fact. And the last category, which is the one we're interested in this evening, is the protected category, where development is restricted. So the main purpose of this presentation and discussion is to start a conversation about how the Hoo Peninsula and other areas of Medway would fit into this new category, or as the government describe it in the white paper, zoning system, with an emphasis on the reasons why we think that they should be protected. That's Hoo and Medway.
Okay, now this slide shows a Google Earth representation of Medway with the Hoo Peninsula and the rest of the urban areas. Medway Council's area of governance includes over 50 linear miles of estuarine areas along the south of the Thames estuary and a large part of the Medway estuary. At present, these areas include a lot of tidal mudflats, which in the foreseeable future will be permanently inundated by rising sea levels. Please note the abundant farmland on the Hoo Peninsula.
Okay, we are about to enter an acronym-free zone. Sites of special scientific interest are areas of land designated by Natural England as sites with features of special interest, for example, wildlife, geology or landform under the Wildlife and Countryside Act 81. Special protection areas relate to the conservation of wild birds under the European Community Directive 79/409, which came into force in April 79. This legislation has been incorporated into the Conservation of Habitats and Species Amendment EU Exit Regulations 2019. Sites in Medway are also covered by the Bonn Convention 83, which dealt with the conservation of migratory wild animals, including birds and fish. Nitrate vulnerable zones is a conservation designation of the Environmental Agency of land that drain into nitrate polluted waters, or waters which could become polluted by nitrates. Special areas of conservation zones is the land designated under Directive 92/43 EEC on the conservation of natural habitats and of wild fauna and flora. Ramsar sites, which are wetland sites of international importance protected by a UNESCO treaty implemented in 1975. There are only 73 in the whole of England. Source protection zones, safeguarding drinking water quality. So, on the Hoop Peninsula alone, we have 2 Ramsar sites, 2 special protection areas, multiple special areas of conservation, 5 sites of special scientific interest, 1 national nature reserve, and nitrate vulnerable zones. Across Medway, we have 2 Ramsar sites, 7 sites of special scientific interest, 2 special protection areas, 9 local nature reserves, 1 national nature reserve, source protection zones, and nitrate vulnerable zones. Roughly 1/3 of the area of Medway constitutes tidal mudflats, saltwater marshes, freshwater marshes, and shingle beaches, all of which are globally important for bird, invertebrate, and plant habitats, ecology, and biodiversity. Some of the rarest and most precious elements of our planet live and thrive in, on, and around the Medway mudflats and adjacent marshes. Medway has not been awarded multiple sites of special scientific interest and Ramsar status for the fun of it. It's because it requires protection.
On this map, the Medway Council boundary is shown in black. The blue hatching, representing the special protection areas, in some parts overlays some of the pink areas, which are Ramsar sites. So these are areas considered to be globally important for both wild birds and wetland. There is a boundary of a 6-kilometre zone shown by lines in the bottom left of the map, within which Section 106 payments are exacted from developers. This would include about £250 for each new house to go towards measures to mitigate against bird disturbance. This represents about 2% of the money a developer would pay for each new house. The rest goes to such things as schools, libraries, community and leisure facilities. The mitigation measures don't really work. Any cat worth its whiskers will show you why. Wild bird general license exclusion zone is an area in and adjacent to protected sites where action is not permitted under certain general licenses for wild birds. Relevant licenses state whether this exclusion applies. In 2019, changes to how you can use some of the general licenses for managing problems caused by certain wild birds. Licensing is an important tool for protecting wildlife whilst allowing necessary activities to take place. You need a license from Natural England if you plan to disturb or remove wildlife or damage habitat. This includes building work.
So I think we're beginning to make a strong case for protection. These quotes on the next 2 slides also seem to be supportive. and state, it is also important that we take the opportunity to strengthen protections that make the biggest difference to species, habitats and ecosystems of national importance and that matter the most to local communities. And another quote from the white paper. Any new system will need to ensure that we take advantage of opportunities for environmental improvements while also meeting our domestic and international obligations for environmental protection. I mentioned earlier that 1/3 of Medway constitutes tidal mudflats, salt marshes, freshwater marshes and shingle beaches. About half of the remaining physical area of Medway consists of arable farmland, pasture and woodland. The best agricultural land is on the Hoo Peninsula, where the soil is underlain by clay and as such is more expensive to build on. To the south of the River Medway, the soil is underlain by chalk, which is much better and cheaper to build on. The remaining third is either developed or previously developed land. And you'll see the bold font underneath. I think this is a really important point. The Hoo Peninsula contains 5% of the Grade 1 agricultural land in the whole of the southeast of England. That's quite a statistic, I think.
This map from Natural England of the southeast of England shows the agricultural land classifications. Red and brown are built up and non-agricultural land. Surprisingly, the predominant colour, green, is Grade 3 agricultural land. The mid-blue colour, covering only about 4% of the southeast, is the Grade 1 agricultural land. The Hoo Peninsula, as Marilyn has said, has about 5% of the total Grade 1 agricultural land in the southeast. Or, should we say, had, after recent planning approvals from Medway Council. This map shows the Grade 1 agricultural land both on the Hoo Peninsula and at Rainham. Those in the know will be able to colour in red where the volume house builders are busy destroying our natural heritage.
So it's very surprising that to Medway Green Party that Medway Council want to allow developers to build on Grade 1 agricultural land on the Hoo Peninsula and Rainham, and has already given permission for a number of developments ahead of receipt of the government housing infrastructure funding that would provide the roads and infrastructure to support these developments.
55% of Medway's land is under crops or maybe bare and fallow, totaling 479 hectares or 1,183 acres. Especially with Brexit, shouldn't this land be treated like gold dust?
The coronavirus pandemic has demonstrated the fragility of our national food supply chain and how valuable our agricultural land should be. Brexit and climate change will push us to extremes not even seen during the wartime rationing and the Dig for Victory campaign of the 1940s. Climate change will mean that countries will feed their own population before exporting their produce. Our ability for wine production might increase, but we will also experience basic food shortages.
With climate change, we can no longer rely on food imports. We need to be more self-sufficient and grow our own food on land that will, in reality, be beyond value. John Seymour was right all along.
And so we should not be building on our green fields or grade 1 agricultural land. So the volume house builders can look elsewhere. That's not a NIMBY statement, just a call to think harder and more carefully about meeting housing needs. So we're now briefly moving away from why, who, Medway should be protected. There are other factors that we think are missing from Medway Council's housing development policies. And as was said earlier, we will be exploring these in future episodes. But Medway is changing, the world is changing, it's called climate change.
The red areas on this map is land that without sea defences would be inundated by 2050. Maintaining the mudflats in this context is going to be extremely difficult and costly. But our international commitments demand that we do maintain them.
In December 2015, I'm sure everybody will recall, the UK signed up to the Paris Agreement in order to keep global warming to below 2 degrees centigrade, but ideally below 1.5 degrees. This means the UK needs to be net zero by 2050. But we must remember that scientists say we are now heading for between 3% centigrade and 4% centigrade of warming by the end of this century. 30% of the world's land surface has been degraded and has soils of low biodiversity. 10% of insects are at risk of extinction. Birds, mammals, amphibians and reptiles have been reduced by 60%. We're about to see a chain reaction which will be beyond anything seen in our history as humans. So net zero by 2050. Building 300,000 houses will generate a lot of CO2. In our next presentation, we'll be exploring this in more detail. We do believe that people need homes, but also that they should be built in the right places and in the right way. But another question to consider: does Medway really need 37 new houses by 2035?
This graph, produced by Medway Council, shows the annual growth in population for Medway, Kent, South East England, and the United Kingdom. Most of these locations seem to be jogging along quite well, except Medway, that appears to be heading for zero growth. Medway planners say they have to use the official Office for National Statistics figures from 2011 when making forecasts for the emerging local plan. The next census is going to be in 2021, so watch this space.
So even so, Medway Green Party are fair-minded people, and we are asking the question: are Medway taking their share of the government's housing targets, the targets that have been set? Medway's population in 2020 is 282,000, divided by housing targets of 37. This will mean that we will be building one new house for every 7.6 people in Medway. So let's compare this to Kent's targets. They have a population in 2020 of 1.6 million, divided by the housing targets of, or their housing targets of 174k. means that Kent will build one new house for every 9.2 people in Kent. Is this fair? It means that Medway Council are taking a 19% greater share of the housing burden per head of population compared to Kent. So you have to ask, why is Medway signing up to more houses than the rest of Kent, especially when it is acting as guardian for globally and internationally important wildlife habitats?
Okay.
So to conclude and return to this evening's main purpose, as stated at the beginning, it is the belief of Medway Green Party that the Hoo Peninsula, and indeed all of Medway, falls under either the protected category or in some areas the renew category. In this case, the renew category will need the full attention of local planners, architects, building inspectors and engineers to achieve a sustainable renewal across Medway's densely populated town centres and the total refurbishment of Medway's existing building stock so that it complies with our national commitments of net zero by 2050. Moreover, there is nowhere in Medway that would fit the characteristics of the growth category as outlined in the white paper, Planning for the Future. So there are many questions that need answering. And in the meantime, we need to do our utmost to protect our part of the natural world. One way to do this is to give nature space to thrive. It does know much better than we do how to do this. It comes naturally.
Okay, well done.
Okay, and at our next meeting, we'll be exploring how housing development is slowly killing us and how we can do better. And just as a little taster, 47% of the carbon dioxide footprint of the UK is a direct result of current construction methods. It doesn't have to be that way.
Well done.
So just to encourage you to get involved, and we really do want us all to get involved and be talking to each other. Together we're stronger. You can sign up for updates on the Protect Medway and Protect Who campaign on that address there. Join our Facebook group. I think perhaps many of you already are on the Facebook group Protect Medway from Overdevelopment, and there's the address. You can join the Green Party or become a supporter. Also, please share your expertise and ideas on how we can challenge Medway Council on its plans for overdeveloping Medway. We're very keen for cross-party discussions. And if you're able to carry out any research to help us on this journey, that would be excellent. You can get in touch and by email to me on that address there. membership@medwaygreenparty.org.uk. So I think now it's over to Kat to facilitate discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was so informative. It was the second time I've watched it, but I still learned so much. So thank you for all the time and effort into doing all that research. So I'm just going to open the floor really just to see if anyone has any comments, if there's anything they want to add, any sort of surprises, any questions. I think you can just, if I can see you, feel free just to hold your hand up physically, or if I can't see you, then you can, there's something you can click to put, it's called reactions, and you can put a thumbs up or a clap and I'll know that you want to say something, or type in the chat and I'll keep an eye on that too. So I think I saw a hand go up. Linda, did you put your hand up just then? No. Anyone else? Peter?
Yeah. What do you intend to do with the presentation? What are the channels and routes and journeys for that presentation? Where is it going to go? Where do you hope it will go?
It's a good question. The plan is that this is a series of presentations that are being put together by the team. The ultimate goal is to wake up Medway Council to the fact that they need to be challenging central government on behalf of all of us who are residents here.
So are there particular targets in the council, like Jarrett or people like that, that you would pick out? Or
it would be the planning department, it would be Alan Jarrett, it would be the climate advisory board. Sorry, Marilyn, how have you got unmuted?
thank you.
What?
Mm-hmm.
I can't
Marilyn,
unmute
you're
you,
muted.
Marilyn. You have to unmute yourself. It's not letting me do it.
I know. Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I understood that the plan was to put it onto our website.
Yes, it'll be
Yeah.
the website and on YouTube and on the Facebook group.
But we're open to suggestions, Peter, if you've got some thoughts.
I think
Well, not immediately. It was just a classical question. Where it was going next, but I see what is a series, and I suppose ultimately, if you're going to do YouTube, then you ought to crystallise it down to a couple of minutes for the heart of listening. I think that defines many politicians, but yeah. So, but that's a later thing. But no, thank you. That's really helpful.
That's a good thought, though, isn't it? To pull some of those things together into a bit of a bite-sized thing that can be easily consumed by people. Some of those headlines.
Yeah, I mean, I think our main goal really is to unite everybody in Medway to fight this together. It's not been about party politics. So that's why we started the Protect Medway Facebook group, to really bring everybody together.
Jenny?
I was just thinking that some of the stuff in there would be really useful for people to have that are maybe objecting to planning applications. That maybe if there was just like a few kind of key points that, you know, when there's like what we were doing here in Upnor and stuff, that actually some of that would be really helpful. And actually, these are the key things that you could pick out on that you could object on from an environmental point of view. Because there's so much little kind of developments in that coming up, isn't there? So I think that might be just to pick those bits out, because people just need it really quickly and easily to digest, because people just get overwhelmed with so much information.
Marilyn?
I've had that thought, Jenny, and if people sign up as wanting updates on the campaign, we can start to sort of collate it all. I'm not a great Facebook user myself, but and for me, it happens all too quickly and too fast, and it moves on and disappears. Whereas if people are really interested, if they can come to a central point, and we're happy to be that central point, it can start to be sort of collated, and we can put together some sort of briefing documents. We did that before, and members have written letters. So I think that can be helpful.
But it also could be that because people will be interested in something that's happening in their specific local area, it could be the thing that triggers the interest. So like it's almost like helping them out with how they're going to be object to something that's happening in their neighbourhoods, and then they realise that it's a much wider kind of issue.
So we've got to be reaching out if you want people to reach back in.
Yeah, I think so. It's just finding that way of kind of doing that. It's difficult, isn't it? Because everyone is just bombarded by so much information. But yeah, we
talked about doing an old-fashioned through the door leaflet with some of the key information on and how people can get involved. That's one idea we threw around. Of course, that brings with it a cost, and we have very little money.
But someone like Village Voices will deliver it with their publication for a very low cost.
Okay.
There's just they do like bulk leaflet deliveries and stuff at the same time. We'll be looking at that for other things.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, can I say something?
Yeah, of course.
While we've been putting this together, we have discovered an awful lot of quite interesting information that we haven't aired tonight. So I would encourage any group who wants to question what's going on to join together with ourselves and with anybody else that will listen, and go through things, because what you actually, when you start digging, it's very, very interesting. And you know, a lot of, as we've been hinting on various of these slides, not everything is done according to the book, or according to the national or international law. Okay.
Wouldn't worry about that. I'm not sure they're too bothered about the law based on recent escapades.
Yeah.
I can. Sorry, Peter. No, Peter.
Just following what's just been said, it's a hypothetical question, so you're going to be right whatever you say. But following on from the 2015 slide you presented about, you know, how the government sees, you know, what it can do and what it can't do, we are in uncharted territory right now with what it can, what it believes it can do by sequestering Ebbsfleet Station, for example, and Ashford, well, most of Ashford, just because it can, and the local councils have no say. Post-Brexit, if we have Brexit, then the bonfire on standards and the bonfire on everything possibly means that all of that 2015 stuff doesn't apply. So it's a leading question. So do you think that the 2015 stuff is sort of now on the bonfire or not as a result of that?
That's a good question.
Oh, it's a really good question.
Who knows?
Any answer will do, by the way, because it's quite a difficult question.
Well, who knows? Who knows? And that's who, spelled H-U-U. But,
No, I don't think any of us know
it's a
whether.
brilliant question, Peter.
Yeah, whether Boris would come out of the Paris Agreement or not. I really don't know.
It's definitely not the time to be predicting the future. I'm going to stick with I hope.
Yeah.
Well,
And I hope that enough people have become more aware of climate change, and thank goodness we've got people like David Attenborough putting out those sorts of programs. So I'm going to hope that people demand that all governments do something. Otherwise, it's a bit too difficult to contemplate, to be honest, Peter.
No. Public, as long as the public are willing to keep the pressure up, I think we stand a good chance. It's when public pressure is lost and then finances take over that the trouble will start, I think.
any Prime Minister that's prepared to go against 5 living predecessors, Prime Ministers, coming together in common purpose, can go anywhere. With an 80+ majority, he's unstoppable. What we've actually created, and it was it was for the wrong reasons, wasn't it? It was to keep out the lesser of two evils, and we've ended up with this unstoppable emperor situation in a fixed parliament, and it is unstoppable, Peter. Whatever anyone of this board here, and you know, your Greens, but whatever your sort of politics and everything, we've got to face fact that we have an emperor with for a fixed parliament that doesn't care a jot, and we got another one the other side of the pond in the States. The world is in an incredible situation.
It is, and that's why we really have to come together.
The whole world has created this empowerment. The world is in the hands of a very few body of people that meet at Davos and various things. The world is carved up. So the stuff that you're doing with the Green is brilliant. You know, and you ask the question, where's this going? It's creating the community is starting to talk, and I think this is you're actually creating the conversation. It's whether or not the world is prepared having given all this empowerment to a handful, whether the world is prepared to take it back or temper it. I don't know. It's a great question you asked, Peter, and that's all I can say. I don't know, we're all in the same boat, aren't we?
No, we are, and we can only do so much, but I think there's power in numbers. There always has been. And I think it'd be very easy to become apathetic in this situation. And
oh, I'm not.
Yeah, we have to.
I'm fighting our part now.
I know you are, David. I know. So
Marilyn's
am I.
got her hand up. Marilyn,
very well behaved. It's because I was a teacher. I forgot what I was going to say now. I think it's important to remember that people do come from different perspectives and different political alliances, and some of the people who we thought were turning up today haven't. It was somebody from the Liberal Party and also from the Labour Party. So we hope to be able to sort of
John's here from the Lib
chase.
Dems.
Well, yes, that's what I was just going to say. I actually don't know everybody here.
And Stuart, actually. Stuart's here as well.
So can we have a bit of people introducing themselves?
Happy to do a little bit of talking if you like. Yeah. Do you think that other people from the Liberal Party wanted to come? I know Andrew Milson wanted to come. He's a parish councillor on Friends Extra. He wanted to be here, but
couldn't.
He's got other commitments this evening. He's involved with Broomhill Park, and he's working on that at the moment. Interesting talk. I know that in the local plan, there's obviously Medway Council is intending to develop Who Village. So there's going to be, but if the plan goes through, they're going to be building there. And interestingly, they're part of the funding that they're going for is to put transport links in. Now, I don't know whether people on the Who Peninsula are already looking for improved transport links, but I can't imagine they're not looking for improved transport links, because there are public transport issues on the Who Peninsula. So in some ways, putting that railway line in, for example, would be a good thing, because there isn't a passenger railway line there at the moment. I mean, there's a freight transport line.
you go to Ron next, because
okay, hi. Talking from a Who Peninsula point of view, and there are a few Who residents here today. The railway line, when it was first mooted, might have been a great idea. Since then, we've had this COVID, and of course, more and more people are working from home. So I'm not sure if they'll ever make any money out of that railway link. The biggest problem for me, and I make no excuse for it, is that we're losing agricultural land where they want to build. Where they want to build part of the station is on agricultural land. It's all on agricultural land. And Who, I was born in Who, by the way. It's a rural village. It's a farming village. That's what it was. And every time they build on another piece of agricultural land, they take another piece of heritage away. And it's not just one piece of heritage. Medway Council have recently opened up discussions about a countryside parkland at Who. It's not a country park. We mustn't call it a country park. It's a country parkland. It's totally different. I don't know what the difference is. Well, I do actually. It means that Medway Council aren't going to run it. But this is on Grade 1 agricultural land. So they want to actually stop growing crops on it and actually make it into a park. When we have the disused Deangate, 129 acres of parkland just a mile away. My theory is, of course, that the parkland at Deangate is probably worth more money for housing than this stretch of land they want to put a parkland on. But I've been fighting, and I've only been a councillor for a short time, but I first introduced the idea of Who Peninsula becoming a national park. And then I went down to the South Downs and talked to the South Downs National Park, and it seemed it took them 60 years to become a national park, and we don't have that amount of time. So we've changed the idea, and what we want to do is bolt the Who Peninsula onto the Kent Downs area of outstanding national beauty. which is in one place, I think it's 4 miles. There's just 4 miles between where it finishes and where the peninsula starts. So that's where we're going on that one. And actually, I've got a motion going in at the next council meeting, asking Medway Council to actually back us on an area of outstanding national beauty. And before I go, there is a new petition that's just been set up by the Deangate Community Partnership, who fought Medway Council's decision on Deangate. And the petition has just gone up to the UK government. We're waiting for it to be okayed. And that is, and the title of that is "No Planning Approvals on Farm, Ecological or Historical Sites Post-COVID and Brexit." And this is just a way of bringing attention to what is happening predominantly in Medway, but for the rest of the country. We are destroying our heritage. And I am one of 55 councillors. The other 55 councillors don't live on the Hoo Peninsula, and very few of them particularly care about the Hoo Peninsula. And so that's the problem we've got. It's not only in national government where this massive difference in numbers comes into play, it's on Medway Council. If all Labour Party and the 3 independents voted together, we still can't defeat the Conservatives. And that's the problem that Medway have got. And that's why it's so important that groups like this come together and a united front, maybe not political even, just a united front against the destruction of what they're doing. And I know that Marilyn, and I know Linda's here, and Ted's here, and Brian's here. I know these are all members of neighbourhood plan teams. And all these neighbourhood plan teams, it's just another wedge we're bringing together to put forward the protections we need. And can I just say quickly, Jenny, I know you had a lot to do with hogwash, and you run a fantastic, yeah, you did a fantastic, a really good campaign. Yeah,
thank you.
But it was a great campaign, and it's campaigns like that will make the difference.
Yeah, I mean, one of the real problems we had is that because it was in the pandemic when they actually sort of put the planning application, it was very difficult to consult locally, almost impossible. So we set up a change.org petition, and we got over 1,000 signatures on it, but then it got rejected by Medway Council because it's not fits Medway Council system. And then so we've had to set up another one. We've only had 31 people sign that. So I think there's really a lot of work that we need to do to put on pressure on the council to change their way that they run petitions, because it's not fair. It's all run by the council. It's not a way of having a voice at all, and you can't easily share when people sign and share the way that you can do with change.org. So I really think I don't know how we get that changed, but it would need to be changed at a committee or a resolution put in or something, just to change that so that there is a much better way for people to have a voice. But in
Medway
a way
Council,
that
Medway Council don't want to change that because it works in their favour. And I think
well,
agree with me.
yeah, I mean, so
Wimpy, Taylor Wimpy's 500 houses, we had the same problem. They changed the rules halfway through, you know, and there's nothing they won't do to get their own way, I'm afraid.
Yeah, but there must be some way that we can actually change that petition system so there is a much fairer way for people to have a voice.
Well,
otherwise
it's been challenged for
Peter had his hand up next, and then
now.
John. Sorry, Peter, you had your hand up. Sorry, Kate.
A couple of thoughts on that. I've just added a third one when you were saying that there's nothing you can do. My thoughts ran towards putting stuff in tea, but that's illegal. It only happens in Russia. But the serious point I was going to make, or two serious points. I've got a book upstairs. It says the situation is hopeless but not serious. I think that rather sums up the situation we face here. But there's 2 points actually that have occurred to me. That as well as doing what you're suggesting doing of, releasing the document to politicians and putting out in bite-sized chunks, which sounds great actually, in chunks is a good idea, Catriona, because we need to be able to absorb it. And there's quite a lot of information in there, actually, really good information. But as well as doing that, have you considered using, bypassing the politicians and using the power of the media and producing a one-page press release from it with some key facts, some very local interests that would, compel hopefully the Kent Messenger and others to take some interest in it. So that's one thing. And if you're aiming high, going back to the conversation about David Attenborough, I noticed that Carrie Simmons has got a casual interest in David Attenborough when she's not delivering children for Boris, that we still haven't seen. And I wonder whether one should consider inviting Carrie down to Medway. Not that she'll probably come, but nonetheless, could you, rain down upon the powers that be via some, shall we call it, celebrity involvement, or someone that says that they care a lot about the planet, because Carrie apparently does care a great deal about the planet, and she has Boris's ear and various other parts of him.
Poor girl.
Yes, poor girl.
Quite crazy.
We have thought about a lot of these, Peter. We need more people to do it with us. So if you can help us with even just one of those, that would be amazing.
I can't help you with polonium in pizzas.
Oh,
or
uranium?
Novichok in tea. I'm afraid not. Yeah. Certainly not publicly, anyway. But I probably could, once you've got your, I could offer you help with press releases. I could offer you help with, producing punchy video material. So the answer is yes, but I'm new here, so I just came along tonight to sort of see what you were doing, really. But yes, I would be able to help you.
Okay, I have your email address, Peter.
Yeah.
So, John,
and telephone number.
You're welcome to share that, of course.
John, you had your hand up before we went to Peter. Did you still want to add something to that? And then Jenny's asked a question on chat.
Sorry.
I'll be back in a minute. I've got to go and give my little in his puffer, but I'll be back in, well, as long as it takes. See you soon.
Yeah, so you were talking about ways of changing the petition system. I can't see it changing while the Tories are in control of the council. They changed it to this system, presumably to stop petitions being so successful. That's why they did it. So the only way I can see of changing it is for somebody else to take control of the council, which I guess almost everybody on this meeting would love to see.
Yeah, with the petition that we've had, so the guy in Democratic Services has been very helpful as much as he can with the system that's there. So we now have the petition online, but we've also now got a paper one, which is very difficult to do at the moment. And it's got to the point, he said, that if people still can't sign it, get them to email me with this information and then I'll add them as a signature. But that's crazy, isn't it? That's the, I mean, it's helpful, but we shouldn't have to get to that point for people to have their voice heard.
People can't sign it when they click on it. They're just going to give up.
We can.
So it's it's Brian from home.
So I didn't hear who said something, but yeah. Okay.
Brian from home. Hello.
Over to you, Brian. Yeah, over to you.
Yeah. Okay. Just saying with the voting system on Medway Council, every time I go on there, I seem to have to put in a new password. It's ridiculous. Through.
Yeah.
So today I tried on something that was on there, and it took me at least 5 attempts and an apology because I couldn't get on there.
Yeah, I think everyone just needs to send in a complaint every time it's going wrong. Just hound them. Okay.
Marilyn, you had your hands up.
Did I?
Oh, I thought you did. I thought you did. Any other thoughts? I think it's been really useful to hear all these things about, because Bernard and Marilyn and Kate did so much research for this presentation, but actually it's now that we need to know how to use that and get it out. So if we have talked about some of these things, but I think it's a really good reminder that we need to go back to that point, and now we've got all of this really well researched information of how we can use it. So I've written down all these ideas that you're suggesting. Yes, Marilyn?
Well, I was going. Actually, we did start off with the idea of having just one presentation, but the more we looked, the more we found, and so that's why actually, there's possibly 3 or 4 of these episodes. So watch this space. More information coming.
Yeah, and I mean, just the last thing on the petition thing, that even though the change.org petition wasn't used, it was a fantastic tool to raise awareness and to get people to sign. And then once you've got them on the signature, you could then send them messages and updates on your campaign and everything else. So if it's not directly about getting petitioned for Medway Council, for example, it's still a fantastic tool to use to just gain that momentum. And I was surprised how much it grew actually and how quickly. So it's very powerful from that point of view.
Maybe we should use the petition to petition Medway Council with their own petition to change their petition.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Marilyn,
Can I just sort of share? I've been a parish councillor now for just over a year, and I don't think I was sort of particularly politically naive before, but it's been an education. You know, your experience, Jenny, just with the petition and how unfair it is, and what's come over to me is how our country is so much less democratic, and I didn't think it was particularly democratic before, and the planning system and the delivery of houses, which I was already very unhappy about, I'm quite shocked, and in some ways I think it's almost good sort of to be a newbie and still be that shockable. And I hope I stay shockable. I don't want to lose that and get jaded.
Okay, so it's almost 9 o'clock. Is there any final comments or questions? In terms of taking all these ideas forward, I don't know, Marilyn or Bernard or any of the other Green Party members, is it worth, well, we're going to have another meeting which is about another topic, but is there anything about people that might want to get involved with helping to disseminate some of this information? Jenny had put forward an idea about getting into local schools, and there have been various other things. So, I mean, are we going to keep everybody on the email groups, and or people could contact us if they're prepared to help? On that, I think that's time, isn't it? Are you happy with that, Marilyn, Bernard? Sure.
Yeah.
Just that I think when we were putting these slides together, things kept being put on and taken off because we ended up having so much material. And I think we at one stage did intend, and I see it's in the chat, Kat, that we have a housing developments are killing us meeting on the 29th of October. So people might like to put that in their diaries.
Yeah, thank you all very, very much for joining us and for offering support and ideas and things. And again, thank you to Marilyn, Bernard and Kate for putting the presentation together.
Bye all.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.